So I've been getting a lot of questions about my kit and my setup because within the last month or so I've changed completely everything. I guess you could say I went through a little midlife drum crisis, so what better way to solve that than to buy new gear. So before I walk you through everything, let's take a second and talk about the sponsor of today's video. This is the Amino Metal app, and Amino is an app that lets you join a community, or an Amino as they call it, and interact with others that share your same interests. And the best way I can describe this app is that it's like social media combined with an online forum. You get the social aspects of social media and the sense of community of a forum. And you can see here on the My Amino tab that I'm a member of a couple Aminos such as the Metal Amino, Drums Amino, and Beatmaking Amino. There are over 1 million Aminos, so anything you're into you can find and join that Amino. And if for some reason it doesn't exist, you can start your own. So for all you metalheads out there, this is the Amino Metal page. And from here, you can do all sorts of stuff. For example, you can chat with other users from all around the world. You can also post blogs, Q&As, polls, and a ton of other things to interact with the community that shares your passion for metal. Or if you're like me and are more of a reader than a poster, you can just browse through and see all kinds of interesting and funny posts. So if you want to check out the Amino Metal app, there's a link in the description, and be sure to follow me. Starting with the kit, this is a Yamaha Stage Custom Nuvo, and it's the kit that has the weird lugs that come off when you change the heads. This has been my gigging kit, which is why I haven't set it up yet. But right now I have it set up as a 4-piece, so I have a 12x9 inch rack tom, 14x14 inch floor tom, which used to be a mounted tom, which is what those holes are, but I converted it to a floor tom, and a 22x17 inch kick drum. I also have a couple other sizes that I've bought throughout the years, but I don't use them as much. And now that I'm in this lighting, you can see the finish a little better. It's called Fade Raven Black, and it's black and it fades to green. And from a distance, or if you're not in ideal lighting, it just looks black. Right now I'm rocking the HHG snare, and recently I put out a full build video on this, but in case you missed it, HHG Drums made the shell and sent it to me, and basically I just put it all together. As you can see, it is a stave shell made out of maple and walnut. It's 14x7, it has 3.5 inch tube lugs, die cast hoops, the DW mag throw off, and 3-position butt plate. And then to top it off, HHG made this sick little badge for the drum. So if you want to see and hear more about this drum, I'll leave a link at the end of this video to the build video. On the snare, I have a Remo P77, and usually I have a Remo controlled sound coated, but for this snare I wanted to try something different, and honestly it's a good head, it just has a touch too much muffling compared to the controlled sound. And with the drum flipped over, I have a Remo Ambassador snare side. And this head is on every other snare that I own. Going to the toms, right now I have Remo Emperor coateds on them. And then on the resonant side of my toms, I'm using Remo Ambassador clears. So Ambassadors are single ply heads, so they resonate more and have more tone, so that makes them good for resonant side heads. And then the Emperors are 2-ply heads, so they're thicker, they're more durable, you get a better attack out of them, so that makes them good for a batter side head. So honestly, you cannot go wrong with Emperors on top, whether clear or coated, and then Ambassadors on the bottom, because it's honestly the perfect head combination. And then on the batter side of the kick drum, I have a Remo Power Stroke 3, which is a single ply head and has a thin inlay ring around the outside. And then on the resonant side, I have a Remo Ambassador coated, and this is a single ply coated head. When muffling a bass drum, a lot of people just like to shove a pillow inside, but me personally, I like to use these little hand towels. I like using them because you can control the amount of muffling, and also they're small enough that they fit through the bass drum porthole, so if you need to take out some or add more, then you don't need to take the head off. On to the cymbals now, and basically all of you have noticed that I've gotten new cymbals. So it all started with this crash because basically my whole life I've been playing the same crash cymbals, so I was like, screw it, I'm gonna buy a new one. Went to the store, hit a bunch of cymbals, and I ended up picking this one, which is an 18-inch Mono Byzance Dark Crash. So I chose the dark crash because it's a very full sounding cymbal, and of course there's some darkness and trashiness to the cymbal, but it's not too much, it's not dead and dull. So a few weeks later, after buying this crash, I walked into Cymbals and they had this in the used section. And this cymbal is an 18-inch Mono Byzance extra thin hammered crash. And when I saw this on the used rack, I was thinking, damn, it'd be nice to have this, but really I don't need it. But after seeing the price, and they also always hook me up at Cymbals, so shout out to Cymbals, I just couldn't say no after hearing it and seeing the price, so I took it off the stand, and sure enough, it had started to keyhole. So because of that little itty bitty crack right there, I was able to talk them down even more. So long story short, I got this cymbal for an insanely discounted price, and yes, I'll get to repairing that crack at some point. So that's why I bought the cymbal, but the reason I kept it is that this crash and this crash sound amazing together. So a couple weeks after buying this cymbal, my buddy hits me up and says that he's selling his 15-inch Byzance dual hats. And as you can see, I bought them from him, he brought them over, we set them up, I played on them, and I immediately fell in love. And my buddy that sold these to me is now playing a pair of 16-inch extra dry hats. So I guess these were too small for him. And I honestly never understood the 15-inch hi-hat hype, but let me tell you, these are amazing. And now the ride cymbal is nothing new, this has been on my kit the past 5 years, but it's a 20-inch Mono Byzance dark ride. So I like this ride because it has great stick definition and the bell sounds incredible. It is a touch too thick to crash on, but I still do it anyways, and I love how it sounds. And last, I have this stack, which usually isn't part of the setup, but in a recent video, I used it and got a lot of questions about it, so this is how it's set up. On the bottom is this thing. This was a 6-inch B8 splash, which was hammered flat, and then heated up, and then shot once and hammered back together into this shape. So that is the bottom cymbal. And then in the middle is one of Lance's crispy bacon hats. I have a video on these, which I'll leave a link to at the end of this video. So that's in the middle. And then on top is this little 6-inch Byzance splash. On to the hardware now, and absolutely nothing has changed. This is all still Tomo Road Pro hardware. This stuff is rock solid, extremely well built, and I love their stands. I did get a new bass drum pedal. This is an Iron Cobra 900 with the Power Glide cam on it. I just got tired of playing on the Franken pedal, which is a Pearl power shifter bass with an Iron Cobra footboard on it. So I finally wanted to get a real bass drum pedal, so this is what I got. And one of the cool features that I like about this pedal is the spring underneath the footboard. So whenever you play, it's almost like the footboard is attached to your foot. And then over here in beater land, I've gotten a ton of questions about this beater, but it is the Vic Kick felt beater, or the VK-B1. And this may look like a new hi-hat stand, but I've actually had this for about a year now, I just haven't used it. You might remember I did a video on how to clean chrome hardware, and I bought this stand just for that video. But this is an Iron Cobra Lever Glide hi-hat stand, and it's exactly like my old one. I switched them out so that they would match, but this stand is in much better shape than my old one. My old one is like 10 years old and it was starting to lose springiness, but this one has a ton of life left in it. And last, I'm still using the old faithful Rock and Sock Throne. In my last drum set tour, I talked about how I wanted to buy a new one, but I don't know, this one works, so why get a new one? My preferred stick is a Vic Firth 2B, which you can kind of read. And if I was to only play one pair of sticks the rest of my life, it would be a pair of 2Bs. So these are pretty beefy sticks, and not all musical applications call for beefy sticks, so if I'm not playing 2Bs, I'll play a pair of Vic Firth 3As, and if those are still too much, I'll play a pair of 7As. And to hold my sticks, I like to use this Vic Firth double stick bag, which is actually made for a marching snare, but with a little bit of modification, you can make it work on a floor tom. And I've talked about the stick bag so many times, but seriously, it is the greatest stick bag ever made. And right now for muffling, I'm still using these ghetto little window clings, which they work fine. They just don't look that great, so I know there's like 1.5 million different muffling companies out there. So if any of y'all out there want to sponsor me, hit me up. So last, we'll talk about my mic setup, and if you've seen any of my other drum set tours, these are all the same mics I've been using forever. For the overheads, I'm using a pair of Rode NT1As. On top of the snare, I have a Shure SM7B, and on the bottom, this is a Sennheiser 609. And then tom mics, I'm probably going to get something new in the near future just because these are so big, I want something more sleek. But on the rack tom, I just have a Shure SM57, and on the floor tom, this is an Audix i5. And last up in the kick is an Audix D6. And of course, for the entire kit, I'm using Hosa Edge Series XLRs. These are top-notch cables and are extremely well built and very high quality, and honestly, I'm proud to have them on my kit. And I know I've talked about these cable ties before, but they are an extreme lifesaver, and for me, they're the kind of thing like, oh, I don't need those, but after using them, I can't live without them. So that's the kit and everything related to it. Hopefully that clears up some of the questions you guys have been asking. And if not, or if there's something I forgot or something you want to hear more about, then leave me a comment and I'll do my best to reply to it, or I'll make another video. And if there's anything studio related, then I've probably done a video on it already, so I'll leave a link to all those. And probably at the end of the year, I'll do a studio tour. So look forward to that, and again, any questions, just leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.